A column of white smoke was already clawing its way into the sky when Rowan Hale burst through the warped doorway, lungs burning, arms wrapped around a limp stranger whose life hung in the balance. The first thing he felt was the unbearable weight of her body, heavier than it should have been, as if the world itself was refusing to let her go. The second was the terrifying stillness of her chest. For a moment he thought he was too late, that he had pulled someone from the fire only to meet death at the threshold. The fire engine sirens were still blocks away, the heat was blistering his back, and Rowan, who had once promised he would never fail to protect another human being again, found himself trembling at the edge of collapse. If you're watching this on Ripple of Love, tap like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe in hope, compassion, and second chances. The scene around him glittered with the harsh brilliance of midday sunlight reflecting off shattered glass and smoke-stained windows. Cars screeched to a stop, and people spilled onto the sidewalk, shouting, pointing, panicking. Rowan barely heard them. All he could hear was the desperate thudding of his own heartbeat and the soft, strained rasp of the woman he had carried out of the flames. He had rushed into the burning office lobby after seeing a high-pitched explosion of fire swallow the entrance. He didn't know her name, didn't know who she was, only that someone had screamed from inside, and something in his soul, something scarred but unbroken, had propelled him forward. His hands were shaking as he lowered her onto the pavement. Ash streaked her cheeks like smeared makeup, and her hair, once sleek and immaculate, clung to her face in damp strands. The tailored white business suit she wore was torn at the shoulder, charred at the hem, and sprinkled with glass dust. She looked like someone sculpted from strength and shattered expectations. When her eyelids fluttered weakly open, Rowan leaned in, praying for simple gratitude, a sign that she was conscious, alive, salvageable. But the first words she forced through cracked lips hit him like a blow. Not again. I can't lose everything again. Not thank you. Not who are you. Not even a frightened plea. Just a broken confession of a life unraveling long before the flames ever reached her. Her voice echoed inside him long after paramedics arrived, long after she was lifted onto a stretcher and taken into the ambulance, and long after the crowd dissolved. Rowan remained seated on the curb, staring at the scorched building where he had risked everything. His palms were still blackened with soot, the cuffs of his shirt singed, but the only thing he felt was the weight of her words. They stirred memories he didn't want, the night he lost his wife in a hospital corridor flooded with too bright fluorescent lights, the bitter realization that he couldn't save everyone, and the years that followed, spent raising his daughter Laina alone. Every decision he had made since then had been shaped by guilt as constant as a shadow. Daylight glared overhead, casting sharp silhouettes against the ground as Rowan finally stood. He walked home in silence, passing through streets alive with construction noise and blooming jacaranda trees shedding purple petals along the sidewalk. Normal life pressed in around him, oblivious to how a fire, and a stranger, had just reopened wounds he thought time had numbed. When he reached his small apartment, Laina ran to him with the brightness of a child who hadn't yet learned how fragile life could be. She had inherited her mother's warm eyes and Rowan's stubborn determination, and she hugged him tightly as if she sensed something had happened. He tried to keep his voice steady as he told her everything was fine, but the truth lingered behind his smile. For the next 2 days, Rowan couldn't stop thinking about the woman from the fire. He had never learned her name, but her haunted expression kept surfacing in his mind, especially during quiet moments, like when he packed Laina's lunchbox or walked past the place where his wife's picture rested on a shelf. He wondered who the woman had lost, what tragedy had carved that exhaustion into her bones, and why she carried an air of someone who had been burned long before the flames ever touched her. Life had tested him too, and he knew the silent battles that left people gasping for hope. The questions followed him to the grocery store, to the bus stop, to the park where he watched Laina play under the sprawling branches of an old oak tree. Sunlight filtered through leaves in shimmering patches, warm and golden, but Rowan felt the steady pull of unfinished purpose. On the third afternoon, fate answered him in the form of a voicemail from a hospital nurse. The woman he had saved was awake, asking to see him. Her name was Celeste, and Rowan learned who she was before he even reached the hospital. A CEO, a young one, in fact, with a reputation for relentless ambition and impossible resilience. But also a woman who had abruptly vanished from public view after a mysterious loss the previous year. Some said it was burnout. Others whispered of tragedy. Whatever it was, her company's headquarters had caught fire during a malfunctioning renovation, and Rowan's proximity had turned him into an accidental hero. When he entered her hospital room, daylight poured through the tall windows, illuminating Celeste in a soft, almost fragile glow. She was sitting upright, though he could see the exhaustion in the slump of her shoulders. Her gaze locked onto him instantly, recognizing him as the man who carried her out. The silence between them felt heavy, like two separate storms preparing to collide. She spoke with difficulty, but not the kind Rowan expected. What she whispered was neither gratitude nor relief. She apologized, for collapsing in his arms, for muttering broken confessions he was never meant to hear, for unintentionally revealing the fracture beneath her confident exterior. Rowan saw the vulnerability she tried to hide, and it struck him that her words during the fire had been raw truth, spoken at a moment stripped of all defenses. As Celeste spoke, he felt something shift in the air. It wasn't romance, at least not the shallow kind, but something deeper, like two damaged lives recognizing each other in the ruins. She told him about the loss of her younger brother, how it had gutted her, how she had thrown herself into her work until she forgot how to breathe without deadlines and obligations. The fire had been a physical manifestation of the collapse she had been ignoring inside. Over the following weeks, daylight scenes became the backdrop of their unexpected connection. Rowan and Celeste found themselves walking through city parks, where sunlight glimmered on the surface of fountains, or sitting at outdoor cafes where the hum of life softened the edges of difficult conversations. Celeste met Laina, who immediately decided the CEO was secretly a superhero in disguise. Rowan watched Celeste slowly heal, watched her shoulders relax, watched her learn to laugh again, and in the process, he felt his own burdens lighten. Life had tested him, bent him, nearly broken him, but now something warm and unfamiliar flickered inside him, hope, timid but persistent. Yet Celeste still carried guilt, believing she had nothing left to give. Rowan understood that fear well. One brilliant afternoon, with the sun high above them and the scent of blooming jasmine drifting through the air, she admitted she didn't know why she had survived the fire or why a stranger like him had risked everything. Rowan didn't answer immediately. He simply looked at her, realizing that saving her had saved a part of him too, the part that believed in second chances. If this story touched your heart, please support it on Ripple of Love. Before the final closing, viewers, please comment below and share what moment moved you the most. In the quiet warmth of a late afternoon, Rowan found himself standing with Celeste near the edge of a hill overlooking the city. Golden sunlight cast soft halos around them, and the breeze carried the distant laughter of children playing somewhere below. In that tender silence, Celeste reached for his hand, not out of dependency, but out of gratitude, out of healing, out of the recognition that two broken lives could still create something whole. Rowan felt the weight of the past loosen its grip, replaced by a gentle understanding that sometimes the people we save return to save us in ways we never expected. And as the sun dipped slowly toward the horizon, painting the sky in hues of amber and hope, Rowan realized their story wasn't born from fire, it was born from the courage to rise from it, together, toward a future neither had dared dream of before.